I'm going to use my comments focusing on the U.S. context, and I'll address three main points. First, the Federal Reserve's monetary policy independence is an important and broadly supported institutional arrangement that has served the American public well. Second, the Fed must continuously earn that independence by using our tools to achieve our assigned goals of maximum employment and price stability, and by providing transparency to facilitate understanding and effective oversight by the public and their elected representatives in Congress. Third, we should stick to our knitting and not wander off to pursue perceived social benefits that are not tightly linked to our statutory goals and authorities.
This is interesting. Tough decisions is a must. An article from CNBC, Powell says, Fed might have to make unpopular decisions to stabilize prices. On Tuesday, emphasized the need for the central bank to be free of political influence while it tackles persistently high inflation. In a speech delivered to Sweden's Riksbank, Powell noted that stabilizing prices, making tough decisions that can be unpopular politically. Quote, price stability is the bedrock of a healthy economy and provides the public with innumerable benefits over time. But restoring price stability when inflation is high can require measures that are unpopular in the short term, as we raise interest rates to slow economy. End of quote. The chairman, Jerome Powell, said in prepared remarks, he added, quote, the absence of direct political control over our decision allows us to take the necessary measures without considering short-term political factors. End of quote. Powell's remarks came at a forum to discuss central bank's independence and were to be followed by Q&A. While the Fed has asked big banks to examine their financial readiness in case of major climate-related events, such as hurricanes, floods, Powell said that's as far as it should go. The Fed this year will launch a pilot program that calls for the nation's 6 biggest banks to take part in a scenario analysis. Quote, scenario analysis. You know, guys, I will dig more into this and bring you more information. Let's continue. Aimed at testing institution stability in the event of major climate events. Major climate events.
Oh my God! Wow!
The exercise will take place apart from the so-called stress tests that the Fed uses to test how banks would fare under hypothetical economic downturns. Guys, check out the heavy hitters participating this year. The banks are Bank of America, Citigroup, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan Chase, Morgan Stanley, and Wells Fargo. Oof. Editor, roll clips. Fair use.
As Ken and others have pointed out, on the first point, the case for monetary policy independence lies in the benefits of insulating monetary policy decisions from short-term political considerations. Price stability is the bedrock of a healthy economy and provides the public with immeasurable benefits over time. But restoring price stability when inflation is high can require measures that are not popular in the short term as we raise interest rates to slow the economy. The absence of direct political control over our decisions allows us to take these necessary measures without considering short-term political factors. And I believe that the benefits of independent monetary policy in the United States and more broadly around the world are well understood and broadly accepted. However, in a well-functioning democracy, important public policy decisions should be made in almost all cases by the elected branches of government. Grants of independence to agencies like ours should be exceedingly rare, explicit, tightly circumscribed, and limited to those issues that clearly warrant protection from short-term political considerations. With independence comes the responsibility to provide the transparency that enables effective oversight, in our case by Congress, which in turn supports the Fed's democratic legitimacy. And at the Fed, we treat this as an active, not a passive responsibility. Over the past several decades, we've steadily broadened our efforts to provide meaningful transparency about the basis for and the consequences of the decisions that we make in service to the American people. We are tightly focused on achieving our statutory mandate and on providing useful and appropriate transparency. On the third point, it is essential that we stick to our statutory goals and authorities and that we resist the temptation to broaden our scope to address other important social issues of the day. Taking on new goals, however worthy, without a clear statutory mandate would undermine the case for our independence. In the area of bank regulation, as Tobias mentioned, the Fed has a degree of independence, as do the other federal bank regulators. Independence in this area helps ensure that the public can be confident that our supervisory decisions are not influenced by political considerations. And today, some analysts ask whether incorporating into bank supervision the perceived risks associated with climate change is appropriate, wise, and consistent with our existing mandates. Addressing climate change seems likely to require policies that would have significant distributional and other effects on companies, on industries, on regions, and on nations. Decisions about policies to directly address climate change should be made by the elected branches of government and thus reflect the public's will as expressed through elections. At the same time, in my view, the Fed does have a narrow but important responsibilities regarding climate-related financial risks. These responsibilities are tightly linked to our responsibilities for bank supervision. The public reasonably expects supervisors to require that banks understand and can appropriately manage their material risks, including the financial risks of climate change. But without explicit congressional legislation, it would be inappropriate for us to use our monetary policy or supervisory tools, for example, to promote a greener economy or to achieve other climate-based goals. We are not, and we will not be, a climate policy maker.
Chair Jay Powell, in a speech largely focused on bank independence and less so on the economy and monetary policy, speaking in Stockholm, will say that price stability is the bedrock of the economy. He'll say it provides the public with immeasurable benefits over the long term. However, he says restoring price stability with high inflation can require unpopular policies, at least in the short term. Then he turns to his general topic here, which is that the Fed must continuously earn its independence and do so by delivering on its mandates of maximum employment and price stability. Preserving the Fed's independence means that Powell says we should stick to our knitting. The Fed should resist, he says, temptation to, quote, broaden our scope. And then he goes on to say that new goals for the Fed without a statutory mandate from Congress can end up threatening the Fed's independence. Specifically, he talks a bit about climate change here, saying climate change policy should be left to elected officials. The Fed responsibilities on climate change should be limited to the narrow area of assessing potential financial risk through its bank supervision responsibilities. It is inappropriate, Powell says, for the Fed to use its tools to promote a greener economy. Then he makes a very definitive statement. We are not, he says, and will not be, quote, a climate change policy maker. So that's pretty much it from a short speech that Powell's delivering in Stockholm. Not much on the economy there, Carl, but maybe he's happy to let the comments of other Fed officials, which have been on the hawkish side, kind of ride and doesn't have much to add to them. We'll see when and if he decides to give a more definitive statement on economic policy and monetary policy. My guess would be it would not come until after the Thursday CPI report. Carl?
Hey guys, it's Jose, your regular Joe Blow again, keeping an eye out and my ears open to the Feds and what Jerome Powell just said about tough decisions coming down the pipeline. And that's understandable. Good thing is, we already knew that there is no pivot in sight, at least for the first 2 quarters. But they are adding new tools to their game. Let's see what they bring in the next few months. In the meantime, prepare, as always, and do your research. Opportunities are coming. There are a few out there now, but only for the prepared. So for the preparing now and unprepared, not financial advice as always, right? But don't buy. I'm not buying anything. I'm not buying anything. And this is what I'm doing. Now, as we are in bad interest rate territory, the trick words they are using are adjustable, variable, conditional, or words like fixed for the first 2 months. Get it? This pertains to all credit. Be careful, guys. Me, personally, I recently started. Practicing delayed gratification is a great thing. So, guys, thank you always for the support. Much appreciated. I'll continue to do my best to bring you the best. And stay free.